Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Amy Lindner-Lesser, and I'm glad to have you joining us today for this podcast. Well, it's March. And for me, March is not about March Madness and basketball anymore. March is for memories, and I march into memories right at the beginning of the month. Welcome to Introspection, the podcast about moving from grief to growth. I'm Amy Lindner-Lesser, your host. Introspection started out as a podcast about hospitality, innkeeping, and innkeepers. After about a year, I realized that my life and interests have morphed from hospitality to helping others navigate from grief and loss to growth and living. In this new version of Introspection, I will be talking about my personal experiences with loss, and there are quite a few, what I've learned along the way through my professional training, as well as from my coaching experiences. I'll also be bringing in guests to share interesting ideas. So grab a beverage, find a comfy place, take a deep breath, and listen in. For me, the first few days of March are extremely triggering. And anyone who has gone through a loss or a major life transition can understand that there are certain days and dates that we may not be aware of in advance, but all of a sudden, when they come upon us, we start to react differently. We may be shorter in our tempers. We may be more moody. We may cry at more things. And for me, there are 2 times a year. March is the first and August is the second. And the reason for that is that I have 3 important dates to me that occur within, I think it's 4 days. March 2nd was my favorite dog's birthday, and he passed 2 years ago. And so I always think about him on that day, and sadness as well as joy and gratitude come out. And then my mother passed away on March 4th. It's 6 years this year. And my late husband Steve's birthday is March 5th. He would have been 73 this year, and it's been 24 and a half years since he passed. I was talking about grief to somebody, and the way I describe it is that as the years pass, grief doesn't go away. What it does is it goes into either a closet or the other room, and it may be really quiet. Don't hear from it for a while. It could be days, it could be hours, it could be months. And then all of a sudden, it bursts through the door, goes boo! And that's what happens when anniversaries roll around. That all of a sudden, the emotions of grief just start to trigger you, and you may find yourself, as I said before, crying. Or I can now say I'm at a point, especially with actually all 3 of them, that I can start to appreciate and find gratitude for the years that I had with each of them and the gifts that they infused my life with. For example, for my husband, Steve, I can think back of the times that we were dating and coworkers when I was in grad school, and I can laugh at some of our antics. I can think about the time that we spent in Mexico with each of our daughter's adoptions. I can think about some of the fun memories that we had creating Victorian dinners in our old community. where we ran from house to house for different courses, sometimes carrying food across back lawns. And I can be grateful for that, for the years that he spent with me at the inn. And then I can also feel sad because certainly my dream and my intention was to grow old with him. The same thing with my mother, that I can think back of on some of the laughs that we had, the lessons that I learned from her. I learned to be a strong woman. I learned to be a voice for other women, to believe in equality of women, to know that I could do whatever and I could be as good or better than a man. And I can miss that she's not around to share. And with both of them, and I joke about the fact that I really miss half of my memory with Steve not being around anymore, that I always counted on him when I would look at photographs of our children and I'd be like, who was that? Where were we? What was the occasion? And he always could fill that in. And now I don't have that. And with my dog, Migo, I believe that he led me to my current dog. And I thank him and I ask him to please make Hershey behave better, to teach him the ropes. And I think finally that's starting to happen. What about you? Do you have time frames that you're aware of, or do things sneak up on you? One of the things that I do with my clients and with myself is to say, take out a calendar and I want you to circle birthdays, anniversaries, death days, and other dates that are of significance. And then, at the beginning of every month, and certainly if there's a date that's circled during the month, that week, look at it and say, okay, this is coming up. I need to give myself some grace because I may have a lot of feelings that I hadn't anticipated having. I may need to say no to obligations. I may need to ask for support from friends or family. If I'm working with a therapist or a coach, I might say, I may need an extra session. Or if I'm not working with somebody currently, I may say, I need a little booster. Just help me get through this tough time. And it doesn't have to be a professional. It could be a good friend. And you don't need to look for answers from anybody. You don't need to have somebody tell you how to do things. You just need to be heard and supported. You need somebody to be what the grief recovery method calls a heart with ears. Somebody whose shoulder you can lean on or cry on. They're not going to give you advice. They're not going to tell you their own experiences. And most importantly, they're not going to belittle how you feel or tell you to stop feeling that way. All they need to do is listen. So this is a short podcast. I want you to see about those dates. Be conscious of them. Know that it's okay when you may have been feeling, quote, normal, if there is such a thing, and, normal pre-life quake and normal post-life quake are very different things, that your whole life has been like in an earthquake or in a maelstrom, in a storm where things have crashed around and they've reorganized themselves in a different way. Some of them have been lost, broken, never to be put back into you. And some are brand new that you're just discovering. Going through a life quake, while extremely challenging and difficult, is also an amazing opportunity to find and discover who you want to be. For example, if you became a teacher because your mother was a teacher, or because somebody said you should be a teacher, because that's what women did, or you became a doctor to follow in the footsteps of somebody, you can now look at your life and say, you know what? I don't want to do that anymore. I want to be whatever it is. I want to be a writer. If you're young enough, maybe you want to be an astronaut. You can pick up a hobby, volunteer, do something different to see what it is that you might like doing. Pretty much the sky's the limit. And it's exciting. Might be a little scary, but it's exciting to find the new you and to begin to lead a life full of joy that you can thrive in. Start with writing down the important dates and looking at them and watching and observing your behaviors and seeing if you do have those anniversary reactions, and then allow yourself to have them. Around those dates, it's also important to give yourself a little bit more self-care than you normally do. And self-care does not have to cost money. I've talked about this before. There are tons of ways to take care of yourself that just require some time. And it's not more hours in the day, just time not doing some of the other things. Instead of maybe scrolling on the computer, maybe pick up a book that you've always wanted to read, or go volunteer at the animal shelter, petting animals. That's good for your physical health. Petting animals lowers your heart rate and quiets you. It's great for stress. It's great to be loved, and that's emotional as well as physical. Find the things that you like to do and do them. We're entering into spring soon. Temperatures are warming up if you're in the colder climates, so you'll be able to do more things outdoors, being out in nature. If you have a place that you can be barefoot and put your feet on the grass or on the ground, that's actual grounding. And we get the energy from the ground. It stops the craziness and helps to center us. One of my favorite things is to find a labyrinth and walk a labyrinth. It's a way of meditating without having to sit quietly and say Om. That doesn't work for me. But meditating while I walk the labyrinth, thinking about one thing, whether it's something I need an answer to, or if it's something that I'm worrying about, all the way to the center, I let it go in the center, and then walking back out, I think of what's going to fill its place, what that is healthy, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and soulfully. And then I go back to my day, and I've gotten exercise, I've gotten fresh air, I've gotten meditation, and I've gotten time for me alone. Time for me alone could be as simple as a bath or a shower, maybe with some great music playing. If it's a bath, maybe with candlelight. And then afterwards, putting lotion on my body and enjoying the feeling of the touch. I don't remember how many we need, but there was a study done quite a few years ago of babies in orphanages. And the babies that didn't get hugged, didn't get touched and loved, did not thrive. We need, I think it's like, I want to say 83 hugs a day. And it doesn't, there's nothing that says who the hugs have to be from. So they could be your own hugs. They could be hugs from friends. They can be hugs from pets. They could be hugs from family. Don't deny yourself the hugs and the caring. Don't deny yourself self-care. We're not, most of us at least, we're not here to live a life where we're supposed to sacrifice. I was just given the information we need 8 hugs a day for maintenance and 12 for growth. So 83 might have been a little hard. Maybe that's what I need. So whatever it is that you need, try to get at least 8, if not 12 or 83. And look at your memories, look at the days that are triggers, and figure out ways to honor the trigger, honor the memory, and to move that energy from where it's stuck into where it can be helpful. Thanks for listening. Happy almost spring. Happy March memory, March Madness, and look forward to seeing you again here in 2 weeks. If you liked what you heard on this podcast and want to hear more, please follow us and tell your friends. You can also find me on Facebook at Amy Lindner Lesser, Grief to Growth Life Coaching, and on LinkedIn at Amy Lindner Lesser.